Last week we heard about the Earth Goddess. The Earth Goddess toiling across the sands of time. And Sri Aurobindo spoke about her, that she wants to know this being that is in her. And of course, the Earth Goddess is the female deity and the Shakti, who is always at the back of our strength. And nothing is impossible for her because she is the conscious power. And she's the universal goddess. Sri Aurobindo says, all creative from eternity and armed with the Spirit's omnipotence. So we've heard about her, and she has a perilous life and a struggling joy. She has a thought that can conceive but hardly knows. And that is because she has taken birth in this material universe. And so what is coming forth from her now in this world of ignorance is the idea, the speech that labels more than it lights, a trembling gladness that is less than bliss, invades from all this beauty that must die. And we ended with this last line, alarmed by the sorrow dragging at her feet, and conscious of the high things not yet won. Ever she nurses in her sleepless breast an inward urge that takes from her rest and peace. Ignorant and weary and invincible, she seeks through the soul's war and quivering pain the pure perfection her marred nature needs. A breath of Godhead on her stone and mire. Because this is the beginning of the evolution. The involution has already taken place. There is no error, no falsehood in the involution. It only begins with the evolutionary move. And so, at this point, the Earth Goddess is still working things out. She makes many mistakes. She is constantly breaking things down and building things up. We can understand how she would get rid of the dinosaurs to create new animals, how she could get rid of certain plants or animals to create new ones. So she wants that pure perfection that her marred nature needs. To mar something is to spoil it to an extent, to render it less perfect or attractive or useful, to impair or spoil something. So the pure perfection her marred nature needs. And what is that? First, a breath of Godhead on her stone and mire, mud. The divine presence is in everything. It is even in the stone. But the stone has no ability to think or even, in our understanding, to feel. A faith she craves that can survive defeat. the sweetness of a love that knows not death, the radiance of a truth forever sure. So now what is going to happen to her? A light grows in her. She assumes a voice. Her state, she learns to read, and the act she has done. But the one needed truth eludes her grasp, herself, and all of which she is the sign. She is, as an earth goddess or Gaia, already the Divine Mother, taken birth in form. And when there is form, there is always the possibility of error and falsehood. And falsehood even leads to evil. But as Sri Aurobindo tells us, evil can also lead to good. Take an example. The usual one, give a man a fish and feed him for a day. Teach him how to fish and feed him forever. So this is what the divine creatrix has to do. She has to find out who she is, and all of which she is the sign. And in that, we see that an inarticulate whisper drives her steps. Inarticulate is not expressive or with intelligible modulations, of which she feels the force, but not the sense. And there's a semicolon there, because Sri Aurobindo wants to continue and tell us that a few rare intimations come as guides. Immense divining flashes cleave her brain. Now, what is this divining flash? Well, it's a kind of intuition or insight. It's not the divine. That would be a mistake to understand it in that way. It's not even heavenly or celestial exactly, or supremely good or beautiful, but it is an intuitive or an insightful revelation. Cleaves her brain. To cleave. This is interesting because cleave usually means to split, but that's not the meaning here. It means to adhere closely to stick or cling to something. So, immense divining flashes cleave her brain. And sometimes, in her hours of dream and muse, the truth that she has missed looks out on her, as if far off, and yet within her soul. A change comes near that flees from her surmise. Surmise is an idea or thought of something as being possible or likely. So it flees from her surmise, and ever postponed compels attempt and hope, yet seems too great for mortal hope to dare, because it's not yet very highly evolved. When the Divine Mother comes back, then the entire earth will change. There will be a beauty that we cannot even as yet conceive of. There will be a perfection, but it will only be a perfection of a small group in the beginning. The whole world is not going to become supermental immediately. That may take centuries or millenniums, but this small coterie will grow and will have its influence on common man. So right now, it seems too great for mortal hope to dare. But a vision meets her of supernal powers that draw her as if mighty kinsmen lost, approaching with estranged, great, luminous gaze. So now we have to look at some definitions, because we'll notice that Sri Aurobindo capitalizes powers. And what are these powers? He's going to tell us very clearly in one of his letters on yoga, and I quote, "These are the forces and beings that are interested in maintaining the falsehoods they have created in the world of the ignorance, and in putting them forward as the truth which men must follow. In India, they are termed asuras, rakshasas, pisachas, being respectively of the mentalized vital, middle vital, and lower vital planes, who are in opposition to the gods, the powers of light. These too are powers, for they too have their cosmic field, in which they exercise their function and authority. And some of them were once divine powers, the former gods, Purvedeva, as they are called somewhere in the Mahabharata, who have fallen towards the darkness by revolt against the divine will behind the cosmos." Now, we read all of that, but we have to look back at that line. A vision meets her of supernal powers. They are the heavenly powers, not the powers we've just read about, that draw her as if mighty kinsmen lost, approaching with estranged, great, luminous gaze. Estranged, kept at a distance, withdrawn, withheld, almost feeling of alienation. But they are approaching, and they are approaching with this estranged, great, luminous gaze. And now, then is she moved to all that she is not, and stretches arms to what was never hers, outstretching arms to the unconscious void. Passionate, she prays to invisible forms of gods, soliciting from dumb fate and toiling time what most she needs, what most exceeds her scope. And what is that she needs? Sri Aurobindo is going to tell us so clearly what most she needs, what most exceeds her scope. A mind unvisited by illusions gleams. A will expressive of soul's deity. A strength not forced to stumble by its speed. Now I'm just going to slow down there a little bit because you see there are so many definitions in the integral yoga that we have to truly understand in Sri Aurobindo's words. So first we have this void, capital V. It is not the void that the dictionaries give us. Sri Aurobindo writes in The Life Divine, the Absolute cannot indeed be bound in its nature to manifest a cosmos of relations. Very important. The Divine doesn't have to do this. He doesn't have to manifest these 90 billion people. But neither can it be bound not to manifest any cosmos. It is not itself a sheer emptiness. For a vacant absolute is no absolute. Our conception of a void or zero is only a conceptual sign of our mental inability to know or grasp it. It bears in itself some ineffable essentiality of all that is and all that can be. And since it holds in itself this essentiality and this possibility, it must also hold in itself in some way of its absoluteness, either the permanent truth or the inherent, even if latent, realizable actuality of all that is fundamental to our or the world's existence. And in his letter on yoga, he says, the void is the condition of the self, free, wide, and silent. It seems void to the mind, but in reality, it is simply a state of pure existence and consciousness, sat and chit with shanti. So she is now praying. Passionate she prays to invisible forms of gods, soliciting from dumb fate and toiling time. What is soliciting? Making a request for something desired. And what is she soliciting from dumb fate and time? What most she needs. What most exceeds her scope. Now, a mind unvisited by illusion's gleams. Now, I could spend a half an hour on these words, mind and etc., but we don't want to lose sight of the importance of Savitri and its mantric power. So we see here a will expressive of soul's deity. This will has to be expressive of the deity that is our soul. A strength not forced to stumble by its speed. A joy that drags not sorrow as its shade. What a beautiful line, huh? So beautiful. He capitalizes joy. A joy that drags not sorrow as its shade. How many of us have had that unalloyed joy along with sorrow? For these she yearns and feels them destined hers. Heaven's privilege she claims as her own right. Just is her claim, the all-witnessing gods approve. Clear in a greater light than reason owns, our intuitions are its title deeds. Interesting word, title deeds. A document that evidences a person's legal right to something or title to property. So here, our intuitions are the title deeds. Our souls accept what our blind thoughts refuse. Earth's winged chimeras are truth's steeds in heaven. Well, what is this chimera? Well, it used to be known as a horrible or unreal creature of the imagination. And in mythology, it's a fire-breathing monster, commonly represented with a lion's head, a goat's body, and a serpent's tail. So these things on earth, these seemingly winged chimeras, are actually truth's steeds in heaven. And what is truth? Well, Sri Aurobindo tells us in a letter on yoga, science started on the assumption that the ultimate truth must be physical and objective. And the objective ultimate, and then in parentheses he writes, or even less than that, would explain all subjective phenomena. Yoga proceeds on the opposite view, that the ultimate truth is spiritual and objective and subjective. And it is in that ultimate light that we must view objective phenomena. So this is very important. We look at these flowers, and to us they are flowers. Well, that's an objective view. But when we begin to look deeper into them, or begin to study the significances that Mother has given to them, we open to another world, a deeper world, a world of ineffable beauty and surprise and delight. So we have to understand all objective phenomena in terms of the subjective. In the foundations of Indian culture, he writes, the supreme truths are neither the rigid conclusions of logical reasoning, nor the affirmations of creedal statement, but fruits of the soul's inner experience. Intellectual truth is only one of the doors to the outer precincts of the temple. The Mother says, the truth is something living, moving, expressing itself at each second. And it is one way of approaching the Supreme. Again, she says, the truth is not linear but global. It is not successive, but simultaneously. Therefore, it cannot be expressed in words. It has to be lived. And then this magnificent line, as all lines in Savitri are magnificent, and informed not only with the mystical, but with the word, capital W. The impossible, God's sign of things to be. Now you would think that's so great. But now he tells us, but few can look beyond the present state or overleap this matted hedge of sense. Well, we know what a hedge is. It's something that prevents people from entering or looking over or anything. And so, in this present state of ours, we find it difficult to overleap this matted, even hedge that is matted, really thick. Yeah, try to go through a hedge of bougainvilleas, or overleap this matted hedge of sense. All that transpires on earth and all beyond are parts of an illimitable plan. The one keeps in his heart and knows alone. Our outward happenings have their seed within. And even this random fate that imitates chance, this mass of unintelligible results, are the dumb graph of truths that work unseen. The laws of the unknown create the known. So we have to look a little deeply at this. All that transpires, all that comes about, all that happens on earth, and all beyond, what are they? Are parts of an illimitable plan, illimitable, boundless plan. But who has this plan? The one, capital zero. The one keeps in his heart and knows alone. But then he tells us, our outward happenings have their seed within. And even this random fate that imitates chance, this mass of unintelligible results, are the dumb graph of truths that work unseen. How positive. So let's look at it carefully. Our outward happenings have their seed within. So that's not so easy to understand, is it? That is there anger in us? And does that anger come out? That outward happening, is that a seed of us within? No, it is not. Because our mind is open to everything, to this flow of constant world thoughts that sometimes envelop it, and the physical mind cannot stop it. We hear a song, we like particular line, and it keeps going on and on and on and on, ad infinitum. So, what are these outward happenings that have their seed within? Well, a good thought, an expression of love, a feeling of peace, a moment of silence, an experience of growth or something higher, a touch of the divine presence, which is what we feel in the Om choir that is coming up in 20 minutes. So, our outward happenings have their seed within. And even this random fate that imitates chance. So we have to look at this word, chance. And I have it someplace else, so I'll pick it up later. But random, of course, occurring without any definite aim. It just happens. And even this random fate that imitates chance, this mass of unintelligible results, are the dumb graph of truths that work unseen. Well, we know what a graph is. And it's a diagram of sorts. And this huge mass of unintelligible results are simply that. They are a dumb diagram that exhibits relationships of truths that work unseen. The truths that work unseen are always happening in us. It may be momentary, it may be a minute, it may be an hour, but it is working in us. Otherwise, we would not be here, or we would be instinctual, like the lives of animals and birds. You watch one of these weaver birds, and how carefully it builds a nest. But it is not conscious of building that nest. It is building it instinctively. It knows, I can't even use the word knows. It has to reproduce to continue the species. And so, in order to do that, it makes a nest. The laws of the unknown create the known. Now, in the Life Divine, Sri Aurobindo tells us, the unknown is not the unknowable. It need not remain the unknown for us, unless we choose ignorance or persist in our first limitations. This is so important. For to all things that are not unknowable, all things in the universe, there correspond in that universe faculties which can take cognizance of them. And in man, the microcosm, these faculties are always existent and at a certain stage capable of development. We may choose not to develop them. Where they are partially developed, we may discourage and impose on them a kind of atrophy. But fundamentally, all possible knowledge is knowledge within the power of humanity. This is where science will eventually have to go, to realize that this knowledge is a universal knowledge, a divine knowledge, given through a divine consciousness. And in the Upanishads, he writes, the unknown is that which is beyond the known, and though unknown is not unknowable, if we can enlarge our faculties or attain to others that we do not yet possess. The events that shape the appearance of our lives are a cipher of subliminal quiverings. Cipher, secret message, secret, something secret. Subliminal. And I will end there because we really have to begin to understand what the subliminal is. Okay, from Life Divine first. We might say then that there are three elements in the totality of our being. There is the subliminal, submental, and the subconscious, which appears to us as if it were inconscient, comprising the material basis and a good part of our life and body. There is the subliminal, which comprises the inner being, taken in its entirety of inner mind, inner life, inner physical, with the soul or psychic entity supporting them. So we see then that our subliminal is an aspect of inner mind, inner life, inner physical, with the soul or psychic entity supporting them. There is this waking consciousness, which the subliminal and the subconscious throw up on the surface, a wave of their secret surge. But even this is not an adequate account of what we are, for there is not only something deep within, behind our normal self-awareness, but something also high above it. That too is ourselves, other than our surface mental personality, but not outside our true self. That too is a country of our spirit, for the subliminal proper is no more than the inner being on the level of the knowledge ignorance, luminous, powerful, and extended indeed beyond the poor conception of our waking mind, but still not the supreme or the whole sense of our being, not its ultimate mystery. And a couple of letters on yoga, and I'll stop, and we'll have 15 minutes break before the Om choir. From the letters on yoga. It is true that the subliminal in man is the largest part of his nature, and has in it the secret of the unseen dynamisms which explain his surface activities. But the lower vital subconscious, which is all that this psychoanalysis of Freud seems to know, and even of that it knows only a few ill-lit corners, is no more than a restricted and very inferior portion of the subliminal whole.